Hello everyone, I'm Joe Ackourey, and welcome to the Fly of the Week. For this episode, episode 8, I'll be tying a traditional Quill Gordon dry fly. So let's get started. First step, place the hook in the vise, making sure that the shank of the hook is parallel with the tabletop. Okay, now, the first part of this fly is the wing, and we need to determine where this wing is going to be set. So what I like to do is use my thread as my, indicator, so to speak. And I begin to wrap my thread around the shank of the hook. And I wrap it back to the halfway point of the shank, approximately there. Clip off the excess. And then I return my thread, wrapping back up to the eye, half of that. So pretty much the 3/4 mark is where these wings are going to be set. Now, the wing material this fly calls for wood duck flank feather. So here's a nice piece of wood duck flank. And I chose this feather because all the ends, all the tips, the natural ends are pretty much even. So, and it's a smaller feather. If they weren't even, I would have to select a little bunch from this side and then that side and join them together and maybe the middle. And then it poses the problem of not all the natural ends are even. So that's why I select the feathers that will work for me. And this, all I got to do is clip off the top part of this and it's ready to rock and roll for my wing. So before I can do that, I want to get rid of this downy fuzz. Just pull that down and away from the main group. And there you have it, pretty much, maybe a little bit more. And now I'm just going to take this feather and draw it up, clip off the back end of the stem, and use that whole piece for my wing. Now, for wing length. Well, we know that the hook dictates to us fly tyers the exact proportions of the materials. So in this case, we have a wing that's going to be set at this predetermined area. And the hook is a size 14 dry fly hook. And the rule goes as follows. We use the eye of the hook and include the entire shank for the wing length. So let's try that. So we're going to place the material. These are the natural ends, and behind me are the cut ends. We're going to take and measure the natural ends with the eye of the hook, and we're going to go back as far as the shank, where the shank meets the bend of the hook. And then we're going to, once we have that length, we're going to pop it into that place where we have our thread. And then we're going to lock it down with 8 or 10 wraps. Okay, now clip off the excess at an angle, so that you get a nice tapered cut, not a straight cut, like so. Now, we have that wing in place, and now we're going to lift the wing up and stand it up perpendicular to the shank. And the way we do that is we dam up some thread in front of that wing until it stands up straight. Very good. So now we have a wing that's in proportion with the shank of the hook. Okay, our next step is separating the wing into 2 equal bunches, and I'll kind of tip the fly to you guys so you see what I do here. I want to try my best to separate this one bunch of hair into 2 separate equal bunches. It's not going to be perfect, but we're going to get close. That looks pretty good. Okay, and we want to make sure our thread is behind the wing to start off. So I'm going to angle the fly a little bit closer to you. I'm going to take the one bunch that I separated and throw a wrap of thread in between it. And now the thread is in front of the wing, and I'm going to take another wrap of thread in between that, moving back. That's the figure 8 method. So we're going to do this several times, maybe 3 more times. Front, in between, back. Just keep doing that a couple more times. And you notice how nice and separated those wings are. Okay, now we have to lock in that figure 8 with a couple of wraps in the front and a couple wraps in behind. Very good. Give it a little pull and pull it up straight up. Almost pulled the hook out of the vise. Okay. Now, if there's a couple of stray hairs there that don't want to, go in with the main group, get rid of them. Otherwise, there'll be a headache down the road when you're wrapping your hackle. Okay, they look pretty good to me. So now, let's prepare for the tail. The tail is our next material that we put in. So we need to wrap our thread to the back of the shank, right where it meets the bend, and prepare for our tail. So the tail material for this is medium or dark dun hackle fibers. So I selected this feather from my main neck. Here's my main neck, and typically you'll find the fibers, the hackles for tailing material on either side of the neck. And the reason why we chose the sides, because look at the length of that fiber. The fiber length is quite long, and you need that long hackle fibers to make a tail. So the way it stands now, it would be pretty hard to pull that tail. So the method that we're going to use is gently stroke the feather down until the fibers, the hackle fibers, are perpendicular to the hackle stem. Just like that. You might lose a couple here and there, but notice how they line up perfectly. Now they're straight. So what I want to do is grab a bunch of these hackle fibers in the direction, like these are the natural ends, and the stem and the hackle fibers are connected to the stem, and we're going to call those the cut ends, so to speak. So let me draw that down a little bit more. I like this side better. But you always want to pull in the direction that the tail is going to be facing. So I'm going to take this group. I'm going to use the tips of my fingers and grab the tips of the fibers. And you're going to grab about a ½ inch worth. Hold on to the top of the feather and gently pull it away. There you go, guys. There's my bunch. Now I don't want to let this go. I want to just tap the back of the cut ends, like we said, and draw them away. And there's my perfect tail. So now we got to carefully measure this tail the same way we did for the wing. So the rule we used for the wing was the shank of the hook, including the eye. We're going to do the same for the tail. Remember, we want to have a balanced fly when we're done here. So there's my mark there. I got that between my fingers, and I'm going to attach that very carefully and wrap the excess all the way up the shank of the hook so it blends in. The end of this tail material blends in with the end of the wing material. So it makes a nice tapered look. And you can see it gradually going uphill. It might be a little bit drastic there, so I'm going to just kind of help it out here and put a couple wraps of thread so it's a nice smooth transition. So there's our tail. Now, the body. The next ingredient for this fly is the body material. And the body material is taken from a peacock eye feather. This is the peacock eye exclusively. The herl that's down below, just below the eye, will not work for this fly or for any quill fly, because what's unique about this material from the eye, and again I stress only from the eye of the peacock feather, is there's a two-tone color to it. It's got a dark stripe and a light stripe, which makes for an excellent quill body fly. So I'm going to clip off one fiber, and then I'm going to take this fiber and draw down the fuzz, and then I'm going to strip it off with my fingernail carefully. You can do this with a pencil eraser. That works really well too. And when you strip this, you'll notice a nice marking on it, a two-tone colored mark. Isn't that cool? That'll make a heck of a quill body. So we have our quill, and the length of this quill needs to be utilized to the max. So there's only so much quill here to work with, and quite a large body we got to fill. So we just want to tie in the very tip of this, carefully anchor that to the side of the fly, and begin, once you have it anchored, begin to wrap your body. So when I make my first wrap, I better not see any thread between the tail and the body material. Once I see that I'm good, I'm going to start wrapping this body. Oh, that's another thing you got to be careful of. It's a delicate feather. So I'm going to start over because I torqued on it a little bit too hard. That happens. And tie it again. Try it again. There we go. And just gradually work your way up. Hopefully I didn't break off too much, but it looks like I'm going to make it. And I want to leave a little bit of a gap in between the wing and the body, just right about there, like a 1/16 of an inch. And fasten that down with 4 or 5 good wraps. Clip off the excess. I lucked out there, guys. I had just enough. So we have our wings, which are the shank of the hook, including the eye, the height of the wing. The tail is the same thing. So again, we're proportioning materials to the size of the hook. Like I said, the hook dictates to us fly tyers the correct body proportions. So now that our body's finished, we're going to put the legs in, or the hackles. Now I selected 2 medium done, dark done hackles. Either shade will work well for this fly. And notice that there's a curve to this feather. I always want the feathers curving down and over, not up and away. So being a dry fly, we want to see all this downy fuzz and webbing. We want to get rid of as much of that as possible. So I'm going to just strip that down and open up and expose the stem. And again, this calls for 2 of them, so I'm going to do the same with the second feather. Get rid of that downy fuzz. And again, down and over the fly. So I'm going to grab the second one, marry it with the first one. Make sure that they're all lined up perfectly like that. Very good. Now I'm going to tie them in, but actually before I tie them in, something you need to know about the hackle length. The hackle fiber length is critical, because you can grab any hackle from a neck, but it won't be, you want to grab a hackle that's proportioned with the hook. So the rule is the hackle length must not exceed the height of the wings or past a gap and a half to 2 gaps past the point or the gap of the hook. So you're looking at something like that. Yep, and these are perfect hackles sizes for this hook. So I'm going to attach the hackle stems to the side of the shank of the hook, pull the wings back carefully, and continue wrapping them up just before the eye. The reason why I do that is when I wrap this hackle eventually, I want this to be a smooth transition while I'm wrapping, and I don't want to have any like drop-offs. Like if I just tied it onto the side and cut them back, there'd be a huge difference in diameter from the back of the wing to the front of the wing. So when you ride these hackle stems all the way up, it smoothens that out. Okay, let's clip these ends off and begin wrapping. The first hackle is wrapped, the top hackle is wrapped 3 or 4 times behind the wing. I'm going to go with 3. 1 full wrap, 2, 3. Oh, don't want to grab that wing. 3. Oh, broke the hackle. Let's try it again. Line up those hackles nicely. 1 full wrap, 2, 3. I guess I was torquing down on that a little bit too hard. And try to get at least 3 or 4 in the front. Now, pay attention, guys. I'm going to chase this hackle with my bobbin, locking it in with each wrap. It's a method my dad taught me many, many years ago, and it helps make a stronger fly. Okay, your first hackle's wrapped. Now I'm going to wrap back to get close to that wing again and repeat the same process with the second hackle. The second hackle is used to fill in any gaps that I missed with the first hackle. So there we go. There's a gap there, 1, maybe 2 wraps in the back. And pull the wings back, find that sweet spot in the front. And again, chase that hackle with your hackle pliers and bobbin. Boom. Nicely done. Lock that in. Cut your excess off. Wrap any loose or open ends there. Any hackle fibers that got caught in the wrapping, get rid of. Tie your knot. Okay, now fly's almost done. You just want to pull up any of these fibers that aren't lining up. If they still don't line up, get rid of them. Clip them as close to the body as possible. There won't be many. There's a couple down here. Just, I call it dressing the fly. Yep. And it really makes a difference in the appearance of the finished product. I like that. Give it a drop of head cement to lock in the knot. Okay, once that's done, if you really want a nice effect, put a little drop on the body to help protect the body and just go around that, and you'll see this body come to life. You can see how nice that quill, that segmentation is unbelievable. And there you have it, guys. The traditional Quill Gordon dry fly. Thank you for joining me, and hope to see you on my next episode. Take care, guys.